Sorry about that. Somebody needs to come pick me quickly after this event, so I was catching up with them. So I'm waiting for the 4 o'clock for the DOT, or you can play the slides again because I got distracted by the phone. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Africa. Good evening, wherever you are. Good morning, wherever you are. Very warm welcome to the Impact Africa for Social Entrepreneurship. It's the second edition of the year and the first really masterclass where we'll be talking with an industry expert today. And I hope there'll be more sessions around social entrepreneurship, touching on topics around investment readiness, funding, sustainability. So be on a lookout for the event. The next one you should look up to is on the 25th to the 22nd of March. And I'm here welcoming you all to this great event. Really excited to have our guest here. And I'm really in Gaborone, Botswana. It's a warm, bright and sunshiny day. So let's kick off the event together and have fun, exchange knowledge. It's all about social entrepreneurship. And today, our topic is on the role of digital technology in driving change and building social enterprises in the continent. Just before maybe we start, I'll just like to clear some house rules. If you want to interact with us, you can post your sessions on the comment sections. It's on your right of the screen. And there will also be a feedback form that I would like you to fill at the end of the session. Yeah. As you already know, the Impact Africa Summit and this event is a partnership of the British Council and Ashoka Africa. We started the journey last year and we'll be hosting a series of sessions in the coming months, really to help Africa build its social entrepreneurship capacity. As we all know, the continent has many challenges, and entrepreneurship, especially social entrepreneurship, is really one of the great ways to achieve sustainable development in the continent. And if you like to see the series of events for the year, go look for the upcoming sessions on the website at www.impactafricasummit.net. And that's when you'll see the series. Register, join in the conversations, engage, and let's change Africa together. And on that note, I'd like to introduce our speaker for today. I have Andy Nagel, Account Director for East Europe, Middle East and Africa for Microsoft. And Andy, I would like to welcome you to today's event.
Thank you, Tibugo, and a real pleasure to be here. I'm really excited to share with you some of Microsoft's thinking on innovation, digital disruption, and artificial intelligence, and how business leaders such as yourself are responding to that. So if you bear with me a second, I will just begin to share my presentation.
Yeah, and maybe as Andy is sharing his presentation, let me just put everything into context here. So we have these great digital technologies that are really disrupting all aspects of our lives, how we work, how we live, and even now how we see ourselves. So with the scope, scale, and the speed of the disruptions, I think it's worth asking the question on how social entrepreneurs can leverage these technologies to drive impact. And maybe just for those who are not familiar with social entrepreneurship, traditionally we are used to businesses pursuing profits only. And on the other side, we also have your NGOs pursuing impact only, but mainly relying on donations, which is really unsustainable in the long term. The new way to go that Impact Africa thinks Africa can transform itself is to have social entrepreneurs who are not just seeking profit, but also seeking impact. So really, it's all about finding the best of both worlds so that we can make profit in the continent while also transforming our communities at grassroots level. And with that, Andy, you can take over.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me okay, Tobago? Yeah?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Super. Okay, as I was introduced, my name is Andy Nagel, and I am an account director in Microsoft's Tech for Social Impact team. So my day job is actually working with not-for-profit organizations to empower their mission through the use of technology. But today, I'm here to talk to you guys as business leaders of the future on how Microsoft think about and approach innovation, how we learn and relearn to define our business model, and why now is the time of artificial intelligence and how business is using it to respond to the new normal. So with that in mind, I'm just going to start at the beginning and talk to you and share with you about how Microsoft think about innovation. We approach innovation with three beliefs. First, we believe innovation should be meaningful. We are not driven by innovating for innovation's sake. We want to create things that will have a lasting impact, no matter the size or scale of it. And beyond that, we focus on our innovation on enabling everyone to innovate, because we believe the next breakthroughs will come not only from technology providers, but from individuals and organizations such as yourselves from across all verticals, whether it be healthcare, manufacturing, or retail, agricultural. Secondly, we believe how innovations are applied is as important as the actual innovations themselves. It is great to innovate, but if we don't apply that innovation and make it real, it won't have any impact. And ultimately, we're doing this to have impact. Our goal is to help organizations around the world and across industries move from siloed innovation projects that are always in incubation mode to a broader transformation model that brings innovation to life. And thirdly, we believe technology should be developed and used responsibly. Society is speaking loud and clear, demanding innovations that not only improve quality of life, but that can be trusted. And this really resonates with the theme of today. The responsibility companies owe not just to shareholders, but that must be expanded to customers, employees, and to the rest of society as a whole. That's why we're not only asking ourselves what technology can do, but we're asking ourselves, what should it do? The idea here is for us to share our best practices, which we hope will help you on your own innovation journey. We're not going to focus on the technology to begin with, but rather about our process. Looking at these three pillars, the first two typically are the innovator's dilemma. As a business, you must think about what your customers still don't see today, but you also need to consider what they expect to see from you and what they don't. How can you meet and exceed their expectations? With the third pillar, responsibility, we're not only thinking about how we're using your technology responsibly, but there is also a layer of accountability, and that's hugely important. How can we make sure that our technology is being used by others in a responsible way? So now that I've introduced these three concepts, I just want to go a little deeper into what we're doing at Microsoft. A moment ago, I mentioned how we focus on our innovation on enabling everyone to innovate. And this starts with a culture of innovation. In recent years, our culture at Microsoft has evolved. We have adopted a growth mindset culture put forth by our chief exec, Satya Nadella. But what does that mean? For us, it means having an incredibly diverse talent pool spanning multiple functions, intellectual freedom, and high impact of research. In fact, 29 years ago, Microsoft created Microsoft Research. It's a robust research facility with 8 labs worldwide and 1,000+ researchers. What is interesting about this part of Microsoft is that we don't tell our researchers what to investigate. Instead, we focus on curiosity-driven research. Our researchers weren't hired to improve the quality of our existing products, but rather to ask and answer new questions and find answers to existing questions. But innovation is more than traditional research. It also includes looking at things such as processes, business models, ethics, products, technology, tools, and talent. For example, we have economists looking into new business models and other specialists looking at talent and how we can improve talent development. When we think about innovation, we like to think about it in 3 distinct horizons. Horizon 1 has a focus on growing the new core. That involves existing products, tangible items, and when you think about structure, this is primarily where the engineers live. Horizon 3 focuses on investing in long-term technologies and is where the researchers are, looking into answers for the future. The space in between these two, Horizon 2, this is where we are incubating for the future and need to look at new business models, and is one of the most complicated things that we have to do. So now I hope you've got a better understanding of how we think about innovation. I just want to share with you for a moment how we are applying it. When we talk about applied innovation, we are referring to Horizon 2 that I mentioned a minute ago, and how we're investing in ideas from Horizon 3 and making them real, eventually moving them to Horizon 1, where we are today. We believe that applied innovation can and should come from anywhere and within our organization. There are 3 fundamentals to this. The first one is learning. How can we make sure that our employees understand our innovations, our research, and areas of focus? And we do this by promoting a learning culture. We empower our employees to be curious and learn more about the things that interest them. You can learn from anyone, and we strive to provide opportunities for our employees to learn from each other. Our researchers and engineers conduct frequent open trainings on different disciplines, and often we invite industry experts to these learning circles to see external perspectives. Every employee is invited to grow in new fields beyond their day jobs. It's never just limited to a certain pool of people. It really goes across the whole organization. The second thing is enabling. One example of how we enable our employees to explore their creativity, it's with programs such as the Garage. This is a space where employees can access highly specialized hardware to explore, try different things, and let their creativity flow. It gives people a space to test out new ideas. And if an employee has a good idea they want to pursue, we have the internal mechanisms to support that idea and test the product market fit, help them to try and remove blockers, and ensuring that the employee is properly rewarded for taking the risk and learning regardless of the outcome. Having that safe zone to take a risk is really important in someone expressing their creativity. The third part is sharing. As some of you may know, I know Tobago's familiar with this, We're really big on hackathons here at Microsoft, with the largest one happening in July that allows people to collaborate on projects with other MS employees from all over the world. Microsoft employees and engineers and developers from all different functions come to participate, and we encourage the cross-discipline because you'll never know when you'll need that different perspective, whether it be from finance, marketing, or sales that they can provide. We also drive open innovation opportunities within our ecosystem, from developer communities to startups, enterprise customers, students, or NGOs and not-for-profit organizations. It is in the intersection of different worldviews where the greatest innovations come to life. But no matter where these ideas came from, every new idea needs to be looked at from a societal point of view and evaluated by the impacts it could have on society. Our last pillar is responsibility. And this is particularly complicated when you think about technologies such as artificial intelligence, because you need to consider the entire life cycle of innovation. In the first phases, from innovation to prototype, we're fairly good about taking into account responsibility. But every product we release to market has a life cycle. It's not enough to think about responsibility when you're first developing the technology. You also need to consider it as you update and make changes to it. In the AI world, the way models evolve over time require us to be extremely careful about the responsibility considerations across our MLOps strategy. We need to think ahead and consider potential unintended outcomes, constantly holding up a mirror to our activities, commitments, and assumptions. We need to bring diverse perspectives to the table, especially those who might challenge our motivations and absorb this new knowledge and perspective. Our technology exists in a continually evolving ecosystem, and we must employ our growth mindset to be open to learning always. Over the last 25 years, we have developed our governance structure comprised of our Office of Responsible AI and Ether Committee, most notably, and we'll touch a bit more on them later. That is not to say that we have everything figured out. We're still working on it. We're still learning. We admittedly don't have all the answers. This is a journey where we all need to walk together. No one likes the idea that their technology or their innovations can be used in a harmful way, but they can. And when you look at it, a lot of the times the intentions are positive, but the potential impacts can be disastrous. For us, it's not just about celebrating an AI algorithm with a 98% success rate. It's about looking at the 2% when it's not successful and understand what the potential impacts are in those situations. It's not about what technology can do, but what it should do. And with that in mind, I want to share how we're applying this approach to what we see as one of the 4 biggest paradigm shifts in technology today. Think about what happened 20 to 30 years ago. Software transformed every industry, becoming the big differentiator that determined whether companies would thrive or be disrupted. In fact, entire industries have been disrupted with software as a service. Think about the lodging industry with Airbnb, or transportation with Uber, or retail with Walmart. These companies look more like software companies than their traditional equivalents. And AI takes this shift to new heights. AI offers a completely new way of creating software and services. And because AI learns instead of being explicitly programmed, it can begin to sense the world around us, extract knowledge from it, and reason on top of it. Just like software transformed every industry, AI is now transforming how businesses engage customers, develop products, optimize their operations, empower employees, and impact society. If in the past every company became a software company, in the next decade, every company will be an AI company. And if we think about this COVID world that we're living in today, referred to often as today's new normal, it's really challenging the status quo and will require many organizations to radically rethink their core business models. But to be more positive, I think it's also good to keep in mind and reflect that some of the greatest achievements the world have seen have come from adversity and really tough environments. In Microsoft, we've talked to many business leaders about how they will navigate the new normal. For some, solving the challenges of today will be about managing risk and squeezing as much efficiency as possible out of existing processes. But for others, today's challenges will be a catalyst for change. The fact is that technology has always provided a tangible benefit to productivity, growth, and the bottom line. AI that's connected to the business in meaningful ways will be the best safeguard to business continuity as we move through recovery and get back to growth. While economic disruptions and uncertainty may cause skepticism, investments in transformative technologies like AI are actually on the rise. In fact, we are seeing an acceleration in enterprise automation plans as a result of the economic challenges posed by COVID-19. We've seen automation acceleration happen before in times of crisis. Recovery from crisis will follow previous trends. Organizations recovering from previous recessions have increased their investments in automation. So that's nothing new. Automation insulates and lowers the risk of work. As recovery happens, automation will take on a new urgency to manage enterprise risk and resilience. And data and analytics will be recalibrated to reflect the new normal. What was relevant yesterday may not be as relevant in the new world. And these include rapidly validating models, creating new data sets, and enhancing modeling techniques. AI technologies available today can bolster your efforts to respond to today's challenges. And as you begin to solve the challenges of now, and also plan for the potential of what's next, so you can set yourself up to emerge even stronger than before. Now is the time to thoroughly examine your business model. Think about how to redefine who you are as a company and how you approach problems and how you make decisions, and ultimately its societal impact. We really do think it's time to think big and be bold. While every organization is completely unique, there are some scenarios that tend to be common no matter what industry or vertical you are in. Whether it's supply chain management for a manufacturing company or a patient experience in healthcare, virtually all organizations are looking to streamline processes, drive efficiency up, and drive costs down. If we're lucky, we may also find that market-making opportunity in the process. A company can only operate as fast as its supply chain can operate. Accelerating speed to market and agilely adjusting to new opportunities, to changes in demand, and to disruptions in supply. These are becoming critical capabilities for most, if not all, organizations. When it comes to using AI to streamline business processes, many companies are finding that their processes, they're just not agile as they need to be to navigate the challenges of today. They're looking to find efficiencies, reduce costs, and ultimately generate value or mission impact. If we think about in the manufacturing space, we see companies like Peremol Glass with fixed costs that are highly sensitive to fluctuations in demand. They're using AI for real-time monitoring and to unlock insights that help with detecting anomalies and defects in their products. Many companies using AI to improve product quality and production efficiency so they can create more predictable delivery timelines and deliver more bottom line value. If we look at routers, it's essential to serve readers with the most interesting and the most relevant content to keep them coming back. They're doing this by using AI-powered recommendation engine that matches relevant video content to articles. With this approach, routers have been able to drive the average completion rate of a video to above 80% with their viewers. If I give the example of PureFacts, they help wealth management companies retain clients, get insights, and comply with transparency standards. With investors looking for accurate, personalized advice, firms need a secure, scalable account management platform. PureFacts platform uses AI and machine learning to automate and oversee data analysis, improve their solution accuracy, and help lower the risk and upfront investment needed. With the help of AI, PureFacts has been able to reduce client attrition, extract financial insights in seconds, and catch 80% of billing anomalies with 90% accuracy. And this helps wealth management firms accelerate value creation and saving, in some cases, over $120 million in potential customer churn, customers that they would have lost otherwise. And true to their brand, Progressive Insurance is engaging customers with Flo chatbot. Building on the popularity of their brand mascot, Flo, they're extending their brand identity by creating an interactive bot designed to be helpful, offload standard requests, all while keeping true to their quirky persona. So not just triaging inquiries, but also able to add a personalization and brand character to the chatbot. And being Scottish myself, I do enjoy this AI case study. So what do you get when you combine 1,000-year-old brewing techniques, human expertise, and craftsmanship with artificial intelligence? At McMyra, Whiskey partnered with Finnish tech company Fourkind and Microsoft to deliver an AI solution for the world's first whiskey developed with artificial intelligence. Using existing recipes, sales data, and customer preferences, McMyra's AI model generates more than 70 million recipes to predict the combinations, production details, flavor notes, and overall product outcomes that will be popular and of the highest quality based on what kind of cask types there are in the warehouse. This is not only faster than a person carrying out the process manually, but thanks to the algorithm's ability to sift through and calculate a vast amount of data, new and innovative combinations that otherwise would never have been considered can be found. Putting AI in the hands of whiskey experts, they can evaluate, test, and refine the recommendations based on their expertise and deep knowledge of the craft at a pace and with a level of detail never before possible. But it's not just organizations using AI also just for driving efficiency, increasing their top line, and driving bottom line outcomes. At Microsoft, we also have our AI for Good. This is our $165 million commitment to empower those working around the world to solve humanitarian issues, advance global sustainability, amplify human capability, and preserve historical places. This initiative is made up of 5 programs: AI for Earth, AI for Accessibility, AI for Humanitarian Action, and AI for Cultural Heritage, and AI for Earth. AI for Good puts the Microsoft Cloud and AI technologies in the hands of those working to address some of society's biggest challenges. If I think about our work with the World Bank, where we are working with AI and data to predict where the next humanitarian crisis might be, so support can be in place before the event happens, quickening the response time and ultimately saving lives. With Seeing AI, an app created by one of our visually impaired engineers, we are able to help blind and partially sighted users connect with the world around them. The app works by using the camera to identify objects, people, places, even handwriting. We're just at the beginning in our mission, and we're excited and humbled to see what can be achieved to advance humankind. And so if I bring all this together, I think you can begin to envision that the change that's coming is going to be huge. It's going to be a huge transformation. These trends will bring AI to every facet of the business and every employee in the organization. It really is a seismic level transformation that is slowly evolving in every company into an AI-powered organization. And I'd like to thank you all for listening to me, and we'll see if there's time for some questions.
Thank you, Andy, for such a great and insightful presentation. We do indeed have about 20 minutes for questions. I think that went quite fast. So yeah, I was listening attentively.
Sorry, Tobago. You might just want to. I thought we had 30 minutes, so I just don't know if we, just in case we get caught short on some questions, we may only have 1 minute left.
No, on my side it shows we're finishing at 3 o'clock. So I guess we have about 20 minutes or so for questions as well.
Okay. Well, let's stay on for a bit.
Okay, so I think one of the things anyone who's watching from Africa would really be keen to know from you is, yes, you highlighted a couple of use cases that one would say the more from like a developing world perspective. And in Africa, we have challenges at grassroots level where it's really the people at the bottom of the pyramid who have challenges accessing healthcare and all that. For example, most of the processes around public services in the developing world still heavily rely on manual and paper-based processes. And from your experience, really, I would like to start to move towards that, but start from this point of view. As you move across the regions that you are responsible for, what have you noticed in terms of the uptake of emerging technologies, and not just maybe AI, but other technologies that are driving the fourth industrial revolution itself? AI, your augmented and virtual realities and that, just so that we lay some context to the conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Tobago. I think, at the macro level, it's very fragmented. So I do a lot of work with organizations such as the International Red Cross, who have a global operation. And I think, Tobago, it really is, it's very patchy, because before you can get into using artificial intelligence or digital healthcare, digital public services, before you can do that, there needs to be an infrastructure. And the infrastructure, it's fragmented at best, and almost non-existent in some places. So I think at the macro level, it's fragmented, but when you get down into certain regions, for me, there does seem to be a disparity. There's not an equal stance on infrastructure. It's not something that's universally accessible for everyone. And so this can make deploying digital solutions very difficult, almost impossible. So at Microsoft, we're looking at technologies such as airband. Airband uses the TV frequencies, the waves that we don't use, and we're using that to try and drive connectivity in remote regions. Because it ultimately, Tobago, it's really difficult without infrastructure. So that's one part. And I think the next part is education. If you had the infrastructure and you had the services, how do you help enable a demographic or a society to get value from those services? And then along with education, there's trust. I think it's a very human thing where, do people trust it? Do they have faith that it's going to deliver value for them? And that's a behavior that I see across Europe, Middle East and Africa. That's not just one specific region. I think people always have a challenge adopting new technology.
Yeah, and I like the fact that you have ended on trust, because in here in our space, we have projects around 4IR and how it can lead to impact to support our country's Vision 2036, which really derives from the UN Agenda 2030 around sustainable development. And one of the things that we have found that make it very difficult for people to trust technology is because in our context, they are not seeing its relevance in improving their everyday lives. And given how, like, the presentation that you had, one may look at it and say, maybe that's not for me. So how would you warn such a person, and how to, especially in how to think about what is coming, and not just perhaps just focus on what is available?
Okay. So would this be in the context of the social entrepreneur, or the social entrepreneur trying to convince the customer?
Yes, I think it's more general from, okay, I'm here in Africa and I'm watching this and I'm seeing this really exciting applications of emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, which heavily rely on having data in digitized format already.
Yeah.
But now when I go to my government office, I still need to fill a piece of paper. So like you are saying, how do we work together with enterprises like Microsoft to really close the awareness gap and ensure that people really see that technology is there to serve them? Because like you said, it has to be meaningful. So for us in Africa, being meaningful means it has to be relevant to us. It has to be applied, and it has to be applied responsibly. So in the context of maybe the social entrepreneur, what can they leverage, having seen all these different gaps around the lack of application of technology, to bring technologies that can speed access to services, or even digitization of processes themselves, even before we add automation?
Yeah, got you. So I think, Tobago, and this is all hypothetically, without a real engagement. Technology inherently gives you efficiency. It will inherently give you productivity. It inherently won't make as many human errors as humans. Now, it doesn't have the emotion. It doesn't have that emotion decision making. So what I would do is I would focus in on efficiency and productivity to begin with. So can I streamline the cost of a service? And can I increase the productivity of the service without having to increase my resource requirement? Because that's a clear, tangible business metric. I'm driving down cost whilst driving up productivity. So that suddenly I've got a good base now to build a business plan. Then in terms of impact, let's just say it's health. So I have access to a health service between the hours of 10 o'clock in the morning and 3 o'clock in the afternoon in the physical world, in the analog world. What if I had access to a chatbot that has access to 100,000 clinical records, data records, standard diagnosis procedure, and I can get peace of mind as a citizen any time of day and night. If my child wakes up at 11 o'clock at night crying, I've got somewhere that I can contact and start to get some sort of reassurance or guidance. Now, I'm not suggesting chatbots should diagnose people, but they can triage. They can begin to triage the problem and get you to that expert faster. So it doesn't matter which industry you're in, whether it's healthcare, public sector, government, education, there are only so many human experts. Yeah, so the role that technology can play is triaging and getting the right people to the right resource quicker and more efficiently than we can everyone connecting with the expert.
Perfect. So you mentioned great tools around, especially the Microsoft Cognitive Toolkit, and those have more. I've seen the utilization of those around in enterprise spaces. So if I'm an African child, I'm in my village and I want to solve a problem, and I don't know which tech is available, but I've heard of Microsoft. How can which programs are available that I can learn about these tools and maybe even see how to incorporate them into my solution? Is there any specific program? I know you mentioned AI for good programs, but just to put it in African context, is there anything quite specific to the continent? Because, to be honest, Africa has been really, it's left behind in terms of adoption of technology, even though it's young people also are showing the appetite to use the technology. So right there, what is available or what is in plan or what can we do together? Because if there's nothing available, I think it's best that we sit together and say, yes, we can do this, having identified specific African needs.
Yeah. Okay. So really great point, Tobago. Thank you for the question. And I agree. Now, what I may give you here today are very simple answers to a very complex problem. Yeah. So please do forgive me in advance. I do understand.
I put you on the spotlight there, so
No, it's fine. It's fine. So one of the things I would like to just acknowledge that you said around advancement in Africa and the continent, and the challenges around user adoption. So the division that I work in at Microsoft Tech for Social Impact, we have just released a customer success unit, which is opened in Kenya. And our customer success team is dedicated to helping not-for-profit organizations adopt technology and really maximize their investment. So we are acknowledging that it doesn't solve the problem, Tobago, but I want you to know that we are thinking about it and we're starting to launch customer success teams in Africa. On training, so two things on training or learning. Always be learning. Always be learning. And I'm so glad that you asked me about resources. So again, very simple answer to a very complex problem, but we have Microsoft Learn. So if you Bing or Google or any other popular search engine brand, if you just type in Microsoft Learn, it will come up. In fact, Tobago, if you don't mind, can I just share the link with you, because I thought about this before I came on.
Please do.
We actually use this inside Microsoft, and it's all free. So I've just posted it there. In fact, maybe that I can't put there. It's in the back chat, Tobago. There's Microsoft Learn. It has learning pathways. It covers all our 3 clouds, so Dynamics 365, Azure, and Office 365, and it's a fabulous learning resource. There's even the ability to get certified. I would just like to pop another one in that's very relevant for our chat today, which is our Artificial Intelligence Business School. Because it's one thing to learn algorithms and machine learning and cognitive services. It's one thing to do that, but as you've been pointing out today, Tobago, quite rightly, it's what's the impact? What's the business impact? What's the societal impact? And our AI business school can help you think through both. So I've popped the link in for there. Now, it's not a utopia answer, but hopefully it's a good place to start.
Yeah. And on that note, I would like to take questions from like our listeners. I see a couple of them lining up there on the comments. I have a question from Lawal in Nigeria, and Lawal is asking, he's saying, financial exclusion has been one of the major challenges in Africa, Nigeria in particular. Although there are a series of efforts put forward by regulators, the CBN in particular, to strengthen access to finance by underserved and unbanked, going by the COVID-19 pandemic that affects micro entrepreneurs and their livelihood, what role for AI in achieving access to finance and financial inclusiveness in Africa? So I think it comes back to the point that there is already a divide in Africa. I mean, just to give it a bit of context, while the economies in the continent were really growing, they left the people behind. And hence, the question of economic inclusion in Africa has to be part of sustainability going forward. So I think here, Lawal is asking about bridging the gap, the divide gap, from a financial point of view.
Yeah.
It's a tough, because even read,
it's a tough question, Tobago.
I'll admit that as well.
And thank you, Lal. I mean, I'm not sure how much Microsoft can, as a technology company, can really help impact there. But I do understand the challenge. And if I had to try and correlate with AI, so one of the technical problems with delivering finance in an equal way, and we have this in the UK, we have a system called means testing, and the government doesn't really use it much because it's really expensive, really time consuming. And what means testing is a whereby they can say, Tobago actually should have a TV license paid for him, but Andy shouldn't. But the system, the analog system, doesn't allow that to happen because they don't have the insight, the data, or the ability to process it. So what they do is they say, Andy looks about 15 years older than Tobago, so Andy can have a free TV license and Tobago can't. So there's from policy and politics to one side, from an actual technical process point of view, the system's inadequate. It can't actually means test to the level where it could make it more equal. And I think machine learning, more so than AI, machine learning could probably play a role in that.
Yes. So during the first series of lockdowns here for COVID-19, the government came up with an intervention to assist the vulnerable because we were all at home. So my company built a system that digitized the registration process for people to seek help, and also to digitize the workflow that allowed the registration, assessment, and approval, and the delivery of like payments as well. So, and one of our challenges, and I'll admit, has been costs in using Microsoft Stack. So what can social entrepreneurs in a similar position to ours do to to use Microsoft stack, and how can we reach out to Microsoft to show how this challenge is also playing a role in us maybe not innovating fast enough? Because if cost is a barrier, then I mean, the whole thing means the innovations that people may come up with may not scale in the end.
Yeah. So cost is, so there's two things, right? Okay. Immediately there's two things. One, cost in itself is subjective, because I don't know what the cost was, and I don't know what services you were running. I don't know if another cloud provider had an offer. I don't know if they did grants. So I just don't have enough detail specifically. But what I would say is that Microsoft are investing in data centers in Africa. And so we are thinking about how best to serve the African continent as a whole, and how can we make our technology more accessible there. I think secondly, depending on the nature of Tebogo, which I'm quite excited about, the mindset of your social entrepreneurs. Okay, there's profit, but there is impact. And that really plays into our AI for Good program. So perhaps there's a conversation that they need to be applying for the AI for Good program, in which credits, Azure credits, can be given for running the cost of the architecture. So I think it's a really great point. I think technology needs to be cost effective and accessible for everyone globally, no matter the region. But difficult for me to give an exact answer on that, because I think cost is always subjective.
Yeah, and it varies across regions as well. We have another question from our audience, Khalil Ali. I think he hasn't mentioned where he is from. I would have given him a shout out, but he's asking, what benefits will social enterprises get in African countries in the near future as we talk about technology to improve our services? I think it ties with like it will be a recurring theme if we were to allow most people to connect in the continent, like to ask questions here, because there is that divide that is experienced across the continent. So you could touch on that as well, Andy.
Okay, so this is what's the benefits will social enterprise will get in the African countries in the near future as we talk about technology to improve our services. I mean, it's super difficult to be specific. It's without knowing details, it's super difficult. But at a high level, at Microsoft, we are striving to democratize AI. Right, with the best will in the world, AI is still a specialist subject. Okay, it's not accessible really to the masses. So we're doing a couple of things in there. One, we are creating AI Business School, which I've shared the link today, which is a free resource, which I would hope you guys can find the time to look over. So we're thinking about learning and learning pathways, and we're making our learning resources free at the point of entry. The other thing we're doing is we at Microsoft, we think about AI also in the context of infused AI. So this is AI that's built in at the product level that can better support your business. So the PowerPoint that I presented today, I don't know if any of you guys are using PowerPoint, and if you are you using Design Ideas, which is an artificial intelligence that it didn't write the PowerPoint for me, but it did make my slides look really pretty, because it can understand what's on the screen and how best to lay it out for maximum impact. So that's an example of infused AI. Cortana is an example of infused AI. Cortana knows more people in my organization than I will ever know. And I'm watching actually to see if Cortana comes on my screen because I'm saying her name. But I can ask Cortana, I'm looking for a colleague who can help me with X subject, and Cortana can help me find that. So again, super difficult to be specific, but we're trying to bring down the entry to AI, democratize AI, build it ethically, and we're also infusing it in our products to help empower people at the individual level also.
Thank you, Andy. And with that, we have come to the end of our Q&A session. And I would really like to say thanks, Andy. I know like some of the questions were not shared in advance, but I thought it will help to maybe speak more from the heart than sound a bit rehearsed. And thanks very much for taking your time out to share with us.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Peter.
Yeah. So one of the themes from the last session that we had was agility. And even here today, Andy has shared with us how, we need to learn and how we need to build enterprises that learn continuously. I mean, if Microsoft can invest in learning continuously, and they already have like such a huge team of researchers, as he said, then we shouldn't think Africa can change from doing things the same old way. Hence, there is a need for us to invest in learning if we are a social entrepreneur, and also to invest in your own passion. Because if we are to really turn Africa around, we cannot afford to miss out on our own challenges. It starts with us solving grassroots communities. It starts with us as youth really realizing that we are the change agents that Africa really needs to transform itself. And with that, the questions around disparities as well, I think I'll be really happy to follow on with Andy to see what we can do to really address the challenges of training and skills to empower people at developer community level, because there are a couple of those that we have worked with across Africa as well. So, I mean, the main thing is for us to really get involved, to expose the gaps that we see in our ecosystems, so that those who are responsible can know that we are facing these particular challenges, and that without addressing those barriers, we wouldn't be able to innovate and do that. And you also mentioned radically rethinking business models. And for us in Africa, really, we need to rethink what it means to be a successful entrepreneur in the continent. If the continent still has problems, and entrepreneurship is monetizing on problem solving, if our problem solving skills are not being applied on social challenges, then I don't see how the continent itself can say it's successful while it's leaving its people behind. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to say, look out for future sessions. There is one coming on the 25th to the 27th of March. And if you really enjoyed the session, I know you'll definitely enjoy the future sessions as well. And on that note, I'd like to thank you all for taking time out to join this session. And from me here, Tebogo Mogalemang in Gaborone, Botswana, I'll say, don't forget to visit website www.impactafrica.net for upcoming webinars. And with that, goodbye, good night, and goodbye once more. Thank you.